Welcome to Typevolution. You can call me Olympia. This is the continuation of the instinctual stackings as monster archetypes, or more simply, as their darkest selves. This is going to be the last video of the contraflow stackings. I recommend you to watch the two previous videos as well. This video is going to be about the social self-preservation stacking, also called SOSP. This is the stacking that typically represents the main antagonist or main villain in most epic large-scale stories. More on that later. First, what are the instinctual stackings? The instinctual stackings derive from the personality theory of the three instincts, which is most notably mentioned in the enneagram. The three instincts are self-preservation, sexual, and social, and abbreviated as SP, SX, and SO. These three instincts are ordered from most personally valuable to least personally valuable in each individual, creating 6 stackings: SPSX, SXSO, SOSP, SPSO, SOSX, and SXSP. You can group the stackings into so-called flows. The synth flow, going with the flow of life, the mainstream, which are SPSO, SOSX, and SXSP. Or contraflow, going against the flow of life, SPSX, SXSO, and SOSP. I recommend you to watch my previous videos about the instincts, which I also call drives because they drive us deep down, before continuing with this video. The contraflow contains two spatial opposites, the SPSX beast below and the SOSP divine being above. SOSP is considered the most celestial, divine, or holy. Akin to the gods of Olympus, the SOSP stacking is inherently set apart, aristocratic, and upper class in outlook and positioning. Nowadays, many conventional old-school actors and most politicians have the stacking for that reason. The social world has precedence. The main focus is on obtaining social status, social relevance, politics, and forming social alliances. The secondary self-preservation instinct creates a concern for preserving and resources, both on a personal level, such as fitness and riches, but also on a global scale, often in the form of environmentalism. The sexual instinct is last, thereby creating a person that is emotionally removed from and uninterested in the world of dating, sexuality, deep connection, personal relationships, passion, romance, intensity, attraction, excitement, and creation. This aspect adds to the appearance of a godlike figure. The SOSP stacking tends to be focused on regulating and governing society with a preserving hand for the best of all, or at the least supporting that same agenda. At its worst, however, the SOSP stacking is socially opportunistic and cold-hearted on a small scale, or a wrathful, pedantic ruler on the big scale, seeing themselves as the gift to all, but actually committing dehumanizing acts for some twisted societal ideal. Dark SOSP can be summarized as the Divine Tyrant. Others perceive this person as some higher being with sophisticated social aims, but which ultimately are tyrannical and destructive for the vast majority, if not all. Now I give you examples of the monsters, from the first unhealthy stage to the second to the third, the absolute worst. At stage 1 of darkness, the person moves within society from the perspective of being above all and the ideal social regulator or supporter, but still retains a connection to doing good for mankind and preserving what's necessary without causing significant harm. The spirits in Spirited Away are a group of divine beings that meet socially in the bathhouse to recharge their self-preservation. In the Shinto religion, kami can be good or evil, help or punish humans. The kami spirits are tied to the social and preservation worlds. Stage 2 of darkness. At stage 2, the person starts to directly or indirectly harm others in their attempts at organizing, advancing, or preserving their society or social group. The person believes they do the most for the sake of their fellow humans, so that their society can strive and survive for a long time to come, but they do so at the cost of others. Often they are secretly motivated by personal interests of fame or social status, but they won't admit that to themselves. Janine Matthews in Divergent is the leader of her faction. She attempts to reign over all other factions as well. She created a serum that can control people's minds. Her goal is ensuring order and the faction system of survival to continue, but doing so she causes the harm of others. The engineers in Prometheus are physically and mentally superior to their creation, the humans. As humans become more reckless and harder to control, the engineers decide to kill all of humanity to ensure social order. They have no particular passions or interests in romance. At the third stage of darkness, the person's ideals are reduced to the control and tyranny over their social group or the entirety of existence. At the core of their social pursuits is an inherently twisted selfishness and ignorance of the true well-being of others. The main driver is selfish opportunism, gaining the prominent status in society and ruling over all like a god, whilst preserving themselves and their world. As a result, countless people die and are being brought to ruin. The Crusades during the medieval period were supposed to turn non-believers into Christians, but were primarily driven by political, territorial, and economic interests. The witch hunts in the early modern period were similarly motivated, typically caused by famines and other diminished resources and physical preservation, which were blamed on groups of people, in this case supposed witches. Both Lord Voldemort from Harry Potter and Palpatine from Star Wars are driven by controlling their social worlds, reigning in terror, whilst being obsessed with preserving or improving their physical form and living for eternity. Similarly, Sauron from Lord of the Rings was obsessed with both social influence and immortality. At this point, I quote Tolkien's description of Sauron, which matches my interpretation of the dark side as OSP being the Divine Tyrant. In my story, Sauron represents as near an approach to the wholly evil will as is possible. He had gone the way of all tyrants, beginning well, at least on the level that while desiring to order all things according to his own wisdom, he still at first considered the economic well-being of other inhabitants of the earth. But he went further than human tyrants in pride and the lust for domination, being in origin an immortal, angelic spirit. Technically, the god in the Old Testament can be assessed as a stage 3 example of darkness during the flood in the book of Genesis. As a punishment of humanity's wickedness, God decided to kill off almost all living beings on planet Earth. Only Noah, his family, and a certain selection of animals were allowed to survive. In a similar manner, Thanos in the Avengers is determined to wipe out half of all existence, because he believes it will improve everyone's remaining lifestyle and preservation. In the course of his plan, he goes so far as to kill and endanger his loved ones as well. Now we are at the end of the examples. I hope you gained a better understanding or feel for each instinctual stacking based on these archetypal representations. They may also help you with typing your own stacking or the stacking of others. Because these examples are twisted and at the lowest level, I do not recommend you to identify too strongly with them. They mostly serve as a warning and representation of what will happen when someone of this stacking falls into the abyss. When it comes to typing yourself, don't be swayed too much by which monsters or characters you fancy the most, but rather which ones seem most relatable to your instinctual drives and your own dark side. Though some examples might be relatable to you even if they don't have the same instinctual stacking as you, but just because they have the same enneagram or Jungian type as you, so be aware of that. In that case, compare yourself to the other examples. If they are also suitable to your dark side, then you could be the SOSP stacking. Also, some characters, such as Thanos, span across different stackings based on the representation in different media or times. At last, I want to point out that our inner monster awakes the more we fail to tend to our instincts. In the case of SOSP, matters of the social world and self-preservation got out of hand and its needs could not be met. The person's instinctual being is suffering. The more so, the worse the monster will be. The only way to prevent this from happening or to reverse the process is to meet the needs of the instincts. I go more in detail with this in my previous videos and probably future videos to come. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like, share and subscribe. See you in the next one. Bye!